Ever pictured yourself in a world of endless possibilities? That would be crazy, right? Well, once upon a time, there was a world of endless possibilities. In this world, one of the most fascinating and mysterious possibilities was the idea of time travel. From H.G. Wells' The Time Machine to the hit film Back to the Future, the concept of time travel has captured the imagination of many. But what if time travel wasn't just a fictional concept? What if it was a real possibility? If you haven't yet, please click the subscribe button. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. 1. Hit-and-run victim from the past. In mid-June 1950, a man named Rudolph Fentz was hit by a car and killed at an intersection in New York City's Times Square. A police officer alongside other witnesses first noticed his bewildered look as he gawked at the traffic signs. While trying to move to the sidewalk in a state of panic, he ran out in front of a taxi and died instantly. The man appeared to be about 30 years of age. His most notable features, aside from his clothing, which was out of fashion, was a luxuriant set of mutton chop whiskers, which was also out of style many years ago. On subsequent investigation by Captain Hubert V. Rim, he found Rudolph's daughter-in-law, who mentioned that Rudolph had gone missing decades before. He went out for a walk and never returned. Rim confirmed her story by searching through outdated missing person records. A man, Rudolph Fentz, had indeed gone missing in 1876. His description matched the man who appeared at Times Square. They also found some interesting items in his pockets, which included a copper token for a beer, a bill for the care of a horse and the washing of a carriage, $70 in old-style notes, 2 gold certificates, a business card bearing the name Rudolph Fentz, and an address on Fifth Ave, with a letter to the same name and address, postmarked in Philadelphia, June 1876, all without any signs of aging. Strange, right? But we're just getting started. 2. The Swiss watch. Chinese archaeologists found a giant coffin in an undisturbed 400-year-old tomb in Shaanxi County in December 2000. As they removed the soil around the coffin, they were shocked and amazed to find a watch with the time frozen at 10:06 and the word Swiss engraved on the back. This was weird because Switzerland was undiscovered at the time, and watches were only invented in 1868, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. Could someone have time traveled from the future to the day that tomb was closed and left the watch inside? 3. Project Pegasus. Going by attorney Andrew Basagio's claim to be a chrononaut, turns out adults were not the only ones time traveling. Among Basagio's claims, he states that in the 1960s he participated as a child in the US-led time and space travel research project called Project Pegasus, and that he time traveled as part of this program on multiple occasions. The mission of Project Pegasus was to study the effects of time travel and teleportation on children, as well as to relay important information about past and future events to the US president, intelligence community, and military. The project involved a total of 140 children who would go on to become America's first generation of chrononauts. In 1972, Basagio claimed he traveled back in time to November 19, 1863, to attend the Gettysburg Address and pointed to a photo of a young man as evidence that he was there. In his story, he had been dressed up as a Union bugle boy who lost his original pair of shoes during his voyage and was given a new pair when he arrived, which is why they appear oversized in the photo. 4. John Titor. In 2000, a mysterious figure named John Titor appeared on the internet. He claimed to be a time traveler from the year 2036. According to Titor, he had been sent back in time to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer, which was essential to fixing a problem in the future. But that's not all. Titor also shared predictions for the future, from a civil war outbreak in the United States to a new world order. Titor offered evidence to back up his claim. He had specific details about the future and even shared pictures of his time machine with his operations manual. Some of his predictions proved true and others failed. He foresaw the renewed conflict in the Middle East, and he saw breakthroughs in physics and knew about certain functions of old technologies. But Titor didn't want people to stay dependent on his claims. He wrote in one of his posts, "I don't want you to believe me. When the day comes for my prediction to be realized, it will either happen or not. If it does happen, then your ability to judge your environment is crippled by your acceptance of me as a knower of all things and gifted with the ability to tell the future. If I am wrong, then everything I have said that might have made you think about your world differently is suddenly discredited. I do not want either. Although I do have personal reasons for being here and speaking with you, the most I could hope for is that you recognize the possibility of time travel as a reality. You can change your world line for the better or worse, just as I am. TITOR posted this for the last time on March 24, 2001. 5. The Vanishing Hotel. In 1979, a couple was on their way to Spain, leaving England and venturing through France. While near Montauk, they were in search of a hotel. Their original choices were packed, but eventually they did find one, an old two-story building with a simple word, hotel, above the entrance. This hotel lacked modern conveniences like elevators and telephones. Instead of standard locks, the doors in the rooms featured wood fastenings and there was no glass in the windows. Was the hotel stuck in the past, or did the couple just take a ride down Centuries Lane? Despite everything seeming particularly old-fashioned, they got a room and stayed for the night. Like out of amusement, they took several photographs. The next morning, they saw some of the hotel's other customers when they went down to the dining room. They too looked strangely out of place, dressed in outmoded clothing, two in old uniforms. Strangest of all was the bill for their stay, 19 francs, far less than they had anticipated. They left but later returned to France looking for the hotel, but they found nothing. The hotel didn't exist. They asked around and no one had ever heard of it. The surprise did not end there. When they returned to England and tried to go through their pictures, they discovered that the ones taken in the hotel were gone. Not only was there no proof that the hotel existed, but there was no proof that they had ever been there at all. 6. The Traveling Mummy. In 2016, in the Altai Mountains region of Mongolia, the preserved body of a 30 to 40-year-old woman was discovered. She had been buried there for about 1,100 years and was wearing modern-day shoes, resembling a pair of snowboarding boots, as the Daily Mail mused in 2017. They were made of felt, with splashes of bright red and knee-length with leather soles. Its unique design was similar to the look of Adidas brand shoes, hence the name Adidas Mummy. This has led to many questions if the ancient Mongolian woman was a time traveler. Perhaps even if the shoes themselves were not from current times, they were made or possibly inspired by someone from the future utilizing the same style. Among her other belongings was what archaeologists described as a beauty kit, including a mirror, a comb, and a knife. There was also a bag of flops, which nowadays could be the dream accessory of today's women. This fashionista mummy is now on display at the Mongolian National Museum. 7. The Time-Traveling Investor. A man named Andrew Carlson was arrested for insider trading in 2003, but Carlson claimed that he was a time traveler from 2256. In 2 weeks, he invested $800 and made $350 million with 126 commercial trades in the U.S. stock market. This strange breakthrough of Carlson in the stock market quickly caught the attention of federal investigators at the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, who arrested him for insider trading. During a 4-hour interrogation, Carlson mentioned that he had traveled back from time in 2256, bringing knowledge of which stocks were set to rise to bag a fortune. The SEC didn't believe him, but they stated they couldn't find any record of Andrew Carlson's presence before December 2002. Carlson was jailed for around 2 months and was later put on bail. More fascinating, on the day he was to show up in court, he disappeared without a trace till this day. 8. An astronaut sculpture. One well-known piece of time travel proof is a photograph of the astronaut carved into a 16th century Spanish cathedral in Salamanca, known as Cathedral Nueva. It has a strange modern figure of what looks like an astronaut wearing a helmet on the entrance wall. Since space travel did not exist till 1957, could this be proof of one of the people building the church was from the future and created this sculpture? People who don't believe in time travel say that one of the designers must have had a wild imagination and often thought about time travel. In this case, it was a coincidence because the suit on the sculpture very closely resembles the spacesuits of today, complete with tubes and boots. 9. The Philadelphia Experiment, 1943. Ever had those times when you only wanted to carry out a simple test with an expected result, but the results you get instead go way beyond expectation? This is what happened with the Philadelphia experiment. The results were enough to make history. In 1943, the U.S. Navy conducted an experiment called the Philadelphia experiment. The reason for this experiment was to try to make the USS Eldridge invisible to the enemy's radar and teleport from Pennsylvania to Virginia. Some reports allege that the warship disappeared for 10 seconds and traveled in time. The men on the ship confirmed this and had the same story about what they saw during the seconds that they traveled in time, and all their stories coincided. 10. The Montauk Project Conspiracy. If you think the Philadelphia experiment was strange enough, wait until you hear about the Montauk Project theory, which is an extension of the Philadelphia experiment and the basis of the hit TV show Stranger Things. The Montauk Project manages to combine every possible other conspiracy into one gigantic ball of confusion. It rolls together time travel, Nazi gold, base aliens, mind control, teleportation, a faked moon landing, black helicopters, and the AIDS virus, all in the form of alleged top-secret experiments conducted at Camp Hero, aka Montauk Air Force Station in Long Island, New York, which was reportedly has an interdimensional tunnel in its laboratory that allowed scientists to travel back to 1943. This conspiracy circulated with two men, the author, Preston B. Nichols, and Al Bielek in the 1980s, when they had begun to recover repressed memories of working in the lab. And according to conspiracy theorists, scientists at Camp Hero Montauk were able to open a portal to the past and the future, and even send people through it. 11. Gertrude Jones. There has been footage of a woman dressed in a stylish 30s dress walking alongside a crowd of people who are also dressed in outfits from the same period, leaving DuPont with a cell phone next to her ear in 1938, and the first cell wasn't commercially available until the 80s. This has been giving true believers even more of a reason to believe in time travel. But then a woman comes up claiming the woman in the picture is her grandmother Gertrude Jones, who was 17 years old at the time and working for DuPont. According to the woman, the factory was experimenting with wireless phones, and the woman was given one for a week to test out. Many people don't believe this story, since it's hard to believe that wireless phones were being tested as far back as 1938. 12. Keanu Reeves. People agree that Keanu Reeves has either excellent genes or excellent plastic surgery, but there are too many facts pointing to something cooler. Keanu is a time traveler who moves along the time curve. There's a claim that the first time Keanu walked the earth was sometime around 1540 when he appeared in a painting by Italian great Girolamo Francesco Maria Mazzola. More than 300 years later, he pops up in another oil picture, an 1875 masterpiece by Louis Maurice Boutet de Montbel. Also, Paul Monet, who died in 1922 and has an uncanny resemblance to Keanu Reeves as well. Coincidentally, Monet's body was never found. Even strange, Monet worked as a scientist, then became an actor. This fits very well with the fact that Keanu Reeves doesn't seem to have aged much at all through his career. 13. The Moberly Jourdain Incident. Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain claim that they have traveled through time and met some historical personalities while they were visiting Versailles, France, 10 August 1901. On that day, they went for a walk in the gardens of Versailles to visit the Petit Trianon. As they strolled, the two women ended up lost in the woods and asked a pair of gardeners for directions. They walked past a woman and a girl in a cottage, a pair of guards wearing capes, and a man at a pavilion. They spoke to a gentleman with a strange accent and were scolded away from a chapel. The winding path took Moberly and Jourdain over a rustic bridge and through an arbor, then across a meadow with long grass. Finally, they reached a lady sitting on a terrace sketching. The entire walk struck both women as completely ordinary yet eerie. Moberly wrote that the stillness and oppressiveness were so unnatural. It was only later the women wondered if they had slipped through time. They tried to find the path again, but some of the landmarks they saw in their dreamlike walk were missing. 14. Nicolas Cage's Theory. Nicolas Cage has managed to pop up in an old-timey picture from 1870 of a man in Bristol, Tennessee. In 2011, Jack Mord stumbled across the original print and put it up for auction on eBay for a cool $1 million. There was much speculation at the time that the photo was a photoshopped hoax, but Mord has been adamant that this is indeed the original, even going so far as to claim that it is proof that Cage is an immortal, saying, "I believe it's him and that he is some sort of walking undead vampire who quickens, reinvents himself every 75 years or so. 150 years from now, he might be a politician, the leader of a cult, or a talk show host." The celebrity addressed the concerning rumors on the David Letterman nighttime show. He humorously said, "Now look, I don't drink blood, and the last time I looked in the mirror, I had a reflection, so I'm not going with his vampire theory. I'm just not going to do it." 15. Mr. Squirrel. In 1973, Mr. Squirrel claimed that he entered a stationery shop in Great Yarmouth to get some envelopes and was served by a woman in an Edwardian dress. He bought 3 dozen envelopes for $1 and left the shop. The next day, he returned once more, only to find the entire shop had changed. It was completely modernized. Upon asking about the strange woman who sold him the envelopes the day before, the elderly woman at the counter was unable to recall anyone of the sort and insisted no other assistant worked there. When Mr. Squirrel's claims were later investigated, it was discovered that his envelopes had stopped being manufactured 15 years prior. That's quite a lot of theories to digest. Which theory did you find most mind-blowing? And if you could time travel, where would you like to go? The past or the future? What would you do? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button.